So it's really wonderful to see everybody here tonight, and I'm gonna read a little bit from the beginning of Ancestral Dreaming, and then sort of give you a quick overview of like the chapters and an outline, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Julie, who's gonna engage me in conversation and ask me a bunch of questions. And some people like to wait and have their Q&A from the audience, like at the end of the talk. I'm more sort of like, let's go with the flow. So if you have a question or an idea or a thought any time during the talk tonight, just throw your hand up. If I'm in the middle of an idea, I'll tell you to hang on for a second. Otherwise, we'll take the questions and comments sort of as they come.
Can everyone hear?
That's a good question. Good.
So
That's
far,
a
so
very
good.
important question. And support your indie bookstore. All three of my books are here, so if you don't have them, you're able to get all three here at Belmont Bookstore.
Tonight?
Tonight.
Wow.
Yeah. So let me just start with asking a couple questions, and then we're going to open with the introduction that's in the book. How many people remember their dreams? Ever? Okay. How many people remember their dreams, would you say, fairly regularly? How many people write down their dreams in a dream journal or record them on their device?
Not anymore.
Oh, very few. Okay, I hope by the end of the evening there are more hands for that. How many people have ever felt like they've been visited by a departed relative in their sleeping or waking life? Okay. According to Pew Research studies, and those are just the people who answered the Pew Research questionnaire, right? 53% of the Americans surveyed said that they had a visit, a dream visit from a departed relative. So, and I'm imagining there are many, many more, except either they didn't remember their dream, or they remembered and didn't record their dream and then they forgot it, because that's what happens when we don't record our dreams. Poof, they're gone. Or they didn't recognize whoever they dreamed about as a departed relative. Because sometimes when we have visits from our relatives at night, sometimes they're dreams as opposed to visits, and we'll talk about the difference between those two things. And they may or may not show up as the person who you recognized as your mom or your granddad or your uncle. Sometimes they come and visit and you know exactly who it is and you recognize them and you're absolutely clear whether it was in a dream or in some kind of waking life, what I call a dream adjacent experience. Like you're really paying attention as you're walking in nature, or you're doing deep guided imagery, or that hypnagogic state when you're just waking up in the morning but you're not quite awake yet, just falling asleep at night but not quite asleep yet. In these in-between liminal spaces, our ancestors like to visit as well. So we'll keep all this in mind as we journey together through the worlds tonight. So here's where, do I need my reading glasses? I brought them just in case. I think I will.
Good choice.
Yeah. There are many benefits to being older, and one of the things that I always would tell my young clients is that if they learn now when they were young to really not care what other people thought of them, they would save so much money in therapy later on. And one of the downsides of aging is you need reading glasses. But it's not a big deal. So, we are the dreams of our ancestors. We carry their lives within our DNA and within our energy bodies. We carry both the shredded remnants of past wounds and the shining grain of sand that created the pearl. If we can inherit trauma, we can also inherit strength and wisdom as well. Your ancestors pass on their gifts, their blessing, and their wisdom through your dreams, and their pain, suffering, and trauma can get transmitted through your nightmares. Let's stop for a minute and reflect. We are the dreams of our ancestors. Deep in your history, your ancestors, your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, as far back as you can imagine, and then some, had a dream, an image, a vision of what they hoped for the lives of their descendants. You are that dream, the time-traveled embodiment of their hopes and visions. Therefore, ultimately, this is a book about hopes and visions, healing and hope. You and your ancestors have been through wounding and trauma, as well as freedom and redemption. As Diana Fosha, psychologist, tells us, we are all hardwired for healing. So the trajectory is ultimately that of attaching and connecting, moving forward, repairing and blessing. Telling the stories of your ancestors and your family lets you know that you are a part of something larger than yourself alone, and that your identity has connection and continuity in time and space. It connects you to the web of time and the web of life. I'm going to read one more little thing and then turn it over to Julie. This is a quote actually from Joy Harjo, who's the poet warrior and was a poet, the one for the country. What's the name of that? Laureate, that's right. She's poet laureate, and she's called herself a poet warrior. She's from a Native American tradition. A family, she says, is essentially a field of stories, each intricately connected. Death does not sever the connection. Rather, the story expands as it continues, unwinding interdimensionally. According to the old ones, time is a weave, a DNA spiral moving within, through us, and around us. It is always changing.
Oh.
So, we'll just take all that in for a sec. And then when we're ready, when Julie's ready, we'll have a conversation.
Thank you, my love, for inviting me to be here
My
with you.
pleasure.
I really appreciate it. And can you share what sparked your interest in writing the book and really listening to your ancestors? To the voice
A
of
little
your
louder, Julie.
Oh, it's me that needs to be louder. Okay, so what sparked your desire to know more about ancestors and to listen to your creeds in this way?
So, this is a wonderful, I love this story because it has to do with a previous book and a dream. So, my previous book, PTS Dreams, Transforming Nightmares from Trauma for Healing Dreamwork, was out in the world for a while, and a colleague of mine from the International Dream Association was an American aid volunteer in the Ukraine, helping the Ukrainians deal with the war trauma. He brought my book, PTS Dreams, with him to the Ukraine to help the people that he was working with heal from their PTSD. He also discovered in contact with me that my first book, Modern Dreamwork, had actually been translated into Russian, of all things, some years ago. So he was very excited about that. So he started using that book to teach the people who he's working with their PTSD, to teach them English. So this is all going on. And why am I telling you this story? Well, our grandfather, my brother's here, our grandfather was born in Kyiv. When he was 3, his parents left and took him because of pogroms in the Ukraine. So he had to flee from the Ukraine. So our family history is fleeing from what was a place that wasn't safe to be Jewish back in the turn of the century. So I always get a little teary when I tell this part of the story. So it just felt like such a perfect gift to be able to reconnect in this way, to sort of turn what had been an experience of trauma in our past into somewhere where I could actually help the people in this country now who needed help. So that was the ancestral connection, for starters. And then, so that's going on. So that's the seed of where this idea of the book came from. And then I had a dream. And then I had a dream. And in the dream, the main character was borscht. Now, borscht.
I remember this.
Yes. Now,
It's a
borscht,
tasty
just
dream.
for those of you who might not know, is an Eastern European peasant soup. It's a stew. It's made of beets. And I had this dream, and I worked on it on my own, and I'll tell you the dream in a minute. And then, when we have a dream of our own, there's just so much we can learn if we process our dream by ourselves, because dreams come in multiple layers. And a dream is like a mirror to our own unconscious and our own psyche. So when we're looking at our own dream, we're looking in the mirror, and we can see the front of our face. We can only see part of us, but we can't see the back of our head. For that, we need to talk with at least one other person or a group of people, and I have people here tonight who have been or still are in my various dream groups that I've had over the years. So when I had a dream about borscht, which I'll tell you in a minute, among other things, I talked to Julie. And Julie helped me peel back some of the layers to get greater understanding of the dream. So sometime after my friend Jose, who was in the Ukraine, and he and I were corresponding on Facebook Messenger, told me what he was doing, I had this dream. So here's the dream. I am in like a large, industrial kitchen, and I'm learning how to make borscht. It's not going so well, but I have a teacher. And the teacher, the chef, says, oh no, you have to do it this way, whatever that way was, and you need this machine that you didn't have, which is called a shredder. So I said, okay, so we have the shredder, and we have the material for the borscht, and then I go back to my students in the dream. I say, no, you have to start over. We didn't have the right material and the right shredder, so we have to start over. And they're not so crazy about starting over, but I said, no, sometimes you have to start over. This is the right way to do it. That was the dream. So before I even say how I understood what it meant and what Julie helped me understand at various layers, given the background that I just told you, anybody got an idea of what any of the layers of that dream might be about? You can't be wrong. This is, when we do dream work, right? You say, if it were my dream, this is what we learned from Jeremy Taylor, and this is like the ethical guideline of doing dream work, is you don't tell someone, your dream means this, right? You say, my association, or if it were my dream, I might be thinking this. So you can't be wrong. It may or may not be what I thought of. And actually, a couple of months, last month, I was out at the Wayside Inn talking, and someone from the audience there gave me the idea about a character in the dream that I hadn't even thought of before, so I was thrilled. So what do you think about the dream? Any connections about ancestral dreaming and that dream?
Well, borscht is the food that your ancestors probably ate a lot of.
Right. Can people in the back here?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yes. So there's
So
the
there's
first
that-
layer, a pretty
Right.
obvious
Right.
connection.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought of starting over.
Beautiful. That has not come up before. Starting over. Yeah, start over. Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, there's an authority in the dream.
Right. How do you connect that? If you do, or just you notice that. That's important.
Yeah, I just noticed it, and you respected that authority. And then you transmitted your respect to the others. So
Okay.
it seemed kind of powerful figure or something.
Yes, and I'm going to hold that thought, and I'll tell you how that connects in a minute with something somebody else said, because you're right on target, and I hadn't used that word before to connect the two things. Yeah.
I'm thinking of like you're creating something and it has importance, like it has to be right, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
I have something
Yeah.
to say. Beets are root vegetables.
There you go. That's the root of the story. Anything, I'd interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's your roots. The roots, and also the color of red is passion. And
Right. Can you tell that Joyce was in a dream circle with me?
Yeah.
She knows her stuff. Yeah.
And your blood.
But
Yeah.
the blood,
Yeah,
right, like
blood.
blood.
So beets are red. Beets are called beetroots. They're about roots. They're red like blood. And in the dream, we didn't have the right materials. We did get advice from an authority to figure out how to do it right. And someone a month ago said to me, I wonder if that chef was an ancestor of yours.
Mm.
Right, that's what I did. I went, because that hadn't occurred to me before, but I think that it felt right. It felt true. And the machine we needed was called a shredder. Now in dreamwork, you pay attention to something that's unusual, that has like what's that? That's a weird thing. So then we ask ourselves, what's a shredder? So a shredder it's like a food processor, and it like grinds up your food, your vegetables into little pieces, and then what happens? It makes them more digestible and able to be metabolized. So that's the food from my ancient country of origin that we had to be able to digest and better metabolize. It had to be processed. If anyone's ever done, I've been on either side of the equation of doing trauma treatment of work, you know, you have to process stuff. So there's the processing of the stuff. And then what else is a shredder? In addition to something that makes beets, in this case, more digestible and more able to be metabolized and nourish us, the word shred is like to rip apart, to tear, and we use that word sometimes when we're heartbroken, right? I feel shredded. Our heart feels shredded. So all those layers were in the dream. And I don't remember how many of them I figured out and how many Julie helped me with and how many came from various groups that I've talked to, but that all kind of came together, and then I knew I had no choice but to write the book. And so the process was, I got a title, and I created a table of contents. That's sort of just my writing process. Gives me a structure. And I was just about to write to my publisher, which is Llewellyn Publisher, to tell them, oh, I have this book, should I send you a proposal? I'm at my dream conference, the IASD, International Association for the Study of Dream. I'm at the conference sitting by the pool. My phone rings. Who's on the phone? The acquisitions editor from Llewellyn saying, we're looking at our next year's program. Do you have any that dream thing that you're writing? We'd like another book from you. Now that's a dream come true. So that's how I got to write the book.
Oh, we all want rich answers like this. So, as like a little background that's not on my list of questions,
Okay.
I remember when you were thinking about titles, one of the titles was Shouts and Whispers. So I wonder if you want to share a little bit about that.
That was the original title, Shouts and Whispers. And Llewellyn, in their wisdom, they always have, you know, like this, you know, when there's too many cooks spoiling the broth or not spoiling the broth, they always have to add their editing in. So none of the books I've written have the original title that I started working with, except PTS Dreams. That was my idea. They liked that. But the original title of this book was Shouts and Whispers. And what that meant, thank you, that's a great question, was when we hear a calling from our ancestors, it can come as a whisper, and it can come as a shout. And in the book, I delineated 6 types of calls that we might receive from our ancestors in our dreams or in our dream adjacent living. And so those 6 layers are, and then maybe I'll give some examples. I'll just name the layers first. The first one is, I'm still here. I'm not really gone. You're not alone. That's call number 1.
Let's just pause with that for a minute. That's a lot.
I'll tell a quick story as we're pausing.
Good.
When my dad Bud died, I'm gonna cry again. And I tell this story a lot too.
And you cry a lot.
I do. People who know me well
Welcome to
know.
the club.
Don't worry. I just keep talking to the tears, and eventually I regain my equilibrium. Our mom reported to us that every day for a week, a red cardinal came and tapped at her window of her bedroom. Every single day for a week. Never happened before, and never happened since. And she was sure that that was Bud coming to say,
Hi.
Still here. Hi. So now, whenever I see a cardinal family, you know, I always say hi, bud. And our mom has passed now as well, so I say hi, mom, hi, bud, when we have, you know, the mom, the couple. We have a nesting pair in our backyard for years. And I've since discovered that that's actually really common. That cardinals in particular, but all different kind of birds, often are emissaries from the spirit worlds, right? Because if you think about it, what do they have in common? Birds and angels, right? And spirits have the wings. So I was very struck when I learned that. So that's one, right? We're not alone. Two is, from over here where I am, I got some gifts for you. I have some wisdom. I have some things that I can offer you that weren't available necessarily in your life here embodied. Number three is, I've discerned, and maybe you've been asking for help, you need help with something. You have a big decision to make, you have a dilemma, you have a health concern. You need some advice, and I'm here to give it to you. So your ancestors come with advice and wisdom and healing to offer. Number four is the flip side of that coin. When our ancestors died after a lifetime that contained a lot of trauma, grief, pain, or wounds, they might not have finished their own healing before dying and passing over to the other side. And they might be saying to us, please help it, I still need help. And what we know about time and space is that it's circular and not linear. So we actually can, and the book is full of examples and stories and exercises that help you reach back across through time and space to give healing to the ancestors who still need it. Help them finish their journey over to the other side. And then what happens is, rather than the family story of pain and suffering that gets passed down from our ancestors to us, to our children, to our children's children, instead we get to transform, we get to pass down the transformed message from trauma to healing and hope, and pass that down, the healing message, the resilient message, the we're still here, we can do it message now, rather than one of being stuck in trauma. That was the fourth. Two more, and then I'm going to pause and get reactions, thoughts, questions. This is a lot. Five is when our ancestors died, really mad at someone. They're holding a grudge. They want you to carry on a grudge. If you think about it, you may or may not in your family history have family cutoffs. People who don't talk to each other, people who are mad at each other over the generations. You may or may not know why. In our own history, we know, the Hatfields and the McCoys, right? Famous in the Civil War. The Montagues and the Capulets, famous grudge matches. Hopefully we want to intervene in this ongoing grudge story before other people die, right? Which happened in those two famous stories. Here, our response is going to be a little different. Rather than receiving or offering help, this is where we say no. This is where we have to create and invoke our boundaries so that we're not carrying on this grudge match, and send them back to the other side, to the fullness of spirit, so they can stop holding the grudge as well. And then number 6, the last one, though certainly not the last, but the last in my list, is remember me. Pass down my name and my story to your children and your children's children's. Pass it down in your artifacts, in your candlesticks, in your prayer shawls, in your rosary beads. I always, in the summer, I was telling someone when I came in that I usually, for some reason, always doing talking in the summer when it's warm enough to wear lightweight clothing that was open at the neck. And I always wore the one artifact from my mother that was my style. When she died, I inherited her jewelry, and most of it wasn't really my taste. But this necklace, this beautiful, beautiful necklace, I wear whenever I talk about ancestors, because it was hers. I think Bud must have given it to her, our stepdad. So I couldn't wear it tonight because I tried it on and it didn't work with this, it like disappeared. But this necklace was made by Ayala Bar, who is an Israeli artist. So I wore another piece of jewelry also made by Ayala Bar to commemorate her necklace. So those are the shouts and whispers. And now I'm gonna pause, let you digest, see if you have comments, thoughts, ideas, questions that you'd like to ask or share. Stories of your own, things that resonated.
I just want to say that one of the most wonderful things about your work, Linda, is that it's so delightful to know that I'm not alone in my little world and having these thoughts, and it's like, oh my God, there's a whole world of, and you are bringing it forth to me in a bigger way. But having had privately and maybe with a friend or two, but not even that, it feels very private because the world isn't always receptive to these sorts of ways of being and seeing. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for sharing that, Jean. Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot because of my own experience and because conversations I've been having with people.
People in the back here? No. Can you speak on that? Oh,
Yeah.
You want a microphone?
Oh,
Is this Elizabeth? Are you Liz?
no,
No, Alice.
close enough.
Oh.
Liz,
Oh,
Alice.
sorry. I was close. These are two of Julie's.
I can actually, I'll just project.
Okay.
more.
Or talk to the back. I'll hear you.
I've been thinking
Hello.
a lot
Hello.
recently because of conversations that I've had,
Put it
and
up.
because of also my my own recent experience losing my grandmother, about people who die in pain and in fear and suffering. And I had a conversation recently with somebody that spoke to this, and I just, what you were saying kind of resonated with that in that moment of like that desire that you wanted them to not be suffering and you want it to be easy, and then maybe sometimes it's not easy. And I think about like this kind of work, ideally I heard about an experience that somebody relayed to me that was, they were told by a psychic that it was okay, like it was painful, but then now the person's fine. And I just found myself when I was hearing that, like having that desire to like have that reassurance. And so as you were speaking, I was just thinking about that, like how powerful that could be. And maybe I did have an experience shortly after that. I had a vision of a doe, and I looked up later what that symbolism is, and that's like peace and stuff. So I was thinking about like maybe that was the sign. But yeah, it was just really what came up for me when I was listening to you is that I know so many people feel that way. It's like this person died in a really hard way, and to just feel like that reassurance that they're at peace is important.
Thank you.
That's what I was
This is a
thinking.
woman
Thank
after
you,
my own
Alice.
heart. Another tearer upper.
Absolutely.
Oh. So I just want to respond to two things that you said, then see what if there's other questions or comments before Julie asks me another question. One is that sometimes when our loved ones died and they had pain and suffering in their life, sometimes they're able to, and however that happens, right? Whatever your belief system is, however that happens, able to heal and metabolize it in order to finish the journey, and they really are their spirits of peace, and they really are okay now, and that is true. And sometimes they get stuck, and that's when they might call on us. Those might be the shouts or the whispers, saying, "Can you please help me?" And there are many ways we can do that because we can time travel, right? If you think about it, in a dream, it's always now. It's not yesterday and it's not tomorrow. It's always now. And when it's now, we're in sacred time. So when we're having a dream and our departed relative has visited, we're in sacred time and sacred space. And in sacred time and space, we can do anything. So you can go and you can offer prayers, healings, blessings, light, spirit animals, anything you want, until your departed relative says, ah. Sometimes that sigh, right? It's like when I was getting PT this week, and I got sighing off and on. He said, "Oh, there's a release. Oh, there's a release." Sometimes, the sigh is a healing, is a release.
Yep.
So that's one thing. And then the other point I wanted to make is that you had this either dream or vision of a doe. So I would wonder, if this were my dream, I would wonder if that is one of your spirit animals who came to visit you and give you that reassurance. And animals have many different kinds of symbolism, and the animal, the doe, the deer, the antlers, the female, the male, there's so many different layers you can research on whatever it was you saw, and see what's the meaning for you of seeing a deer in connection with what got stirred up for you, and then you're going to get another layer.
It was actually a doe with a fawn, now that I remember.
Oh,
It was,
did you hear?
A doe
A
with
doe
a fawn.
with a fawn. Great.
Mother and child.
Oof. Any
Maybe
other
one more.
comment or question or thought?
So a shredder also is something that makes something unidentifiable when you're going to recycle or throw out something.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So I was thinking the 6 sort of modes, they were all very connecting. I was is there ever resistance from the other side? Like, I don't really want you to know, I'm ambivalent about you knowing, I'll give you the stuff, but shredded, like.
Oh, I see. Well, I've never personally met or heard of an ancestor who comes through with wisdom, information, questions, and then says, "Don't tell anyone." That has not been my experience. I'm sure it could be.
They just wouldn't come through, period.
They just wouldn't come through, or they wouldn't tell you. That's my sense. But if there is, then you have a couple of options. If someone comes through and says, "I'm going to tell you this, but don't tell anyone else," in your dream or in waking life, you get to talk back to your dream characters, right? That's a form of dream work based on the Gestalt form of where everything in the dream, well, there's 2 things. One is everything in the dream is some part of you. That's a Gestalt perspective. But also, when we do dream active imagination, dream reentry, we can go back into the dream and talk to the various characters, to the various objects. You can talk to the doe and the fawn. You can talk to the riverbed. You can talk to whoever came through and said, "Don't tell anyone," and ask them questions like, "Why not?" Or, "Why did you tell me if you don't want to share it?" Or, "What is it about this that concerns you?" So you'll see. You'll see what happens.
Linda, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 where you spoke about grudge.
Oh yeah, that was fine.
And I wonder, it's not quite the same, but I wonder if you want to tell the story of the Armenian woman.
Yes. Okay. So, a couple of years ago, a person found me online in Watertown. We live in Watertown. There's a large Armenian community in Watertown. And she said, "My mom has been having nightmares for years and years, and she's been to every doctor under the sun and tried all these things, and nothing worked. And then we came across your website and the work you do. Can you see her?" I said, "Yes." And so she brought her mom in, and this was really interesting. So here I am, and the mom spoke English, but not super well. So every time I met with mom, which was 3 or 4 times, I met with both of them together. So the mom and her daughter. So I had the family system in the room with me as I'm doing this dream work about her ancestors. So I'm not only paying attention to what the woman is saying, but but sometimes she doesn't have the English words for it, so she says it in Armenian, and then her daughter translates into English for me. So we're having this 3-way back and forth around languaging. So I have to be listening at sort of multiple layers of listening, and I'm also watching. Is what I think somebody's saying the same as what the other person thinks they're saying? Is there any mistake in translation? So I'm also watching body language to see if there's any reactivity around all that. So let me tell you the story of what her dream was and her nightmares. Here we go. Here it is. I'm gonna find it. There it is. I put a bookmark in. So here's her history. Her history was she was born in Armenia, survived the Armenian genocide, came over to America, but while she was still in Armenia, there was also an earthquake there. So she and her family survived an earthquake as well as the Armenian genocide. And she came to America, married, had kids, worked. When I saw her, she was probably about our age. So there were two themes in her nightmares. One theme was that she was being followed and chased by some men on a particular street in her hometown, and she was frightened that they would catch her. And when I asked her why, this is her dream, she said she was afraid they wanted to kill her. And the other theme was that she lost her way. Okay.
And this is recurring.
And these are reoccurring themes that have been keeping her up for years. So, okay. When we do dream work with nightmares, we want to create a safe space to do the work before jumping into what I call the belly of the beast. We don't want to hit the nightmare head on. We don't want to re-traumatize anyone. We don't want to ask someone to revisit a nightmare before they feel safe enough and have the resources to do it. So this method that I designed called the Gaia method stands for Guided Active Imagination Approach. And the first stage is built on an EMDR protocol of resource installation. This EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's an integrated, embodied form of psychotherapy. So first I ask her to gather resources before we look at the dream. So the resources that she gathers are, she said she needed a bright light to be able to see because the street was very, very dark in the dream. And she needed a fiery circle of protection around her that could keep everything that was dangerous outside. And then the last thing she said she wanted before doing the actual dream work was she wanted wings to fly so she could soar above the street and fly away if she needed to. So this is what she gathered before we even went into the dream. So we start doing the dream work. I check in to make sure she has everything she needs. And before I even have a chance to finish my sentence, she's in the dream. And she says, "Why are you following me?" Good question, right? So here's the talking back to the dream characters. And I didn't want her to get scared or to get attacked in the waking intervention. So I said, "You want to take a step back, take a look around, see if you recognize the street, see if you know anything about it." She says, "Oh yes," she recognized the street. It was on when she was in her 20s. So we're going back and forth with this. And then she says, this was the street her father used to warn her and her siblings about when they were little. He said that was the street the ghosts chased them down. Ghosts. Because she said her father used to say, watch out for the ghosts. So she had no idea why. So I want to make sure that there's not a problem in translation here. So I said to her daughter, I said, did she mean ghosts like we understand ghosts in English? And she double checked and it was yes. Like that's what her father said, the ghosts on the street. So she knows that they're really ghosts, and the shadowy men chasing her were the ghosts her father warned her about. Now, here's another escape story, right? They left before or during the Armenian genocide, and who knows what kind of ghosts were circulating in the streets there. She also said, now that she could see them, they were little tiny men, like dwarfs. This is a fairy tale motif. And we know that fairy tale and mythological motifs often show up in dreams as well. So the question I then asked her, and this is a big question when you're working with nightmares or grudges, is this your dream or nightmare or ghosts to hold and carry or not? And she was clear as a bell. She goes, no, I live here. I never saw these ghosts. These aren't mine. These are my fathers. So she was able to just tell them to go back to wherever you came from. You're not mine. I don't need your warnings. You don't need to chase me. And we said, okay, send them back to the other side. And together, she sent them to the other side, and we said, on the count of 3, we're going to send them back, and we're going to whoosh them over. So we all together, the 3 of us in the room, counted 1, 2, 3, and then all together we went whoosh, and we sent the little dwarf ghosts out to the corner of the room, off to the other side, and that was that. So, I don't even remember the question you asked me. Oh, just
Tell the story.
tell the story.
It's a
right.
good story, though.
There's the story. So, I
It's a good
said,
story.
let's see how you are, because this was not someone I was seeing long term. I was just seeing her to see if we could help with the nightmares. So I said, keep me posted if you want to come in again or not. And a week or 2 later, I get an email from her daughter saying, my mother's sleeping much better. She's not having any nightmares anymore. Thank you very much, and we don't need to come back. That's the story.
Okay, I have a question for
Okay.
that story. Isn't that a great story?
Yeah.
So what you did there is you kept the daughter from having ghost dreams, and then if she has children, her children from having the ghost dreams. So can you talk a little bit about intergenerational trauma, epigenetics? I know you wanted to touch base about that.
Let me just check in on time here. I guess we're still good. So we can inherit things in several ways. We can inherit our blue eyes or our dark hair or our height, literally genetically from our ancestors. We can also inherit things through a process called epigenetics. And in researching the book, I learned that epigenetics means, epi is Latin for on top of, so on top of the genetics. So anything that we go through, we feel, not just emotionally, but we feel it literally in our body, right? That's why it's called feelings, because we feel it in our body. So whatever our ancestors went through at an epigenetic layer, they experienced in their bodies. And they pass that on from their bodies to the bodies of their children. And this other very, very cool thing that I learned is that every woman is, before she's born, has all the eggs in her ovaries that she'll ever have. What that means is, when your mother was a fetus inside of her mother, your grandmother,
So
you were there too. Because the eggs were already there. And that just kind of blew my mind to think of that. So there's the epigenetic layer of whatever our ancestors went through, positive or negative, it gets transmitted through this above the genes but still body knowledge, and the emotions, and how we're parented. The family system we grow up in is how we then parent the next generation and the next generation, unless we become aware and cognizant of what we like or think is good that we want to pass on, or what's maybe not so good or not so healthy that we'd really rather not pass on to our children and our grandchildren. So this gives us the opportunity to be aware, and then once we have awareness, we have choice. So with awareness and choice, we can transform the narrative that we pass along. So there, rather than passing down intergenerational trauma, which we hear a lot about these days, we can pass along intergenerational healing instead to the next generation.
Yes. So I know we don't have a whole lot more time, and there is one question that I want to hear. Oh, we didn't do that. You want to just talk about sapphire light?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A little louder, please.
Sapphire
I don't
light.
have to. She's gonna.
I'll type. So, and then I have one more story, depending on whether there's questions or comments from you
Good.
all as well.
Good.
Because then after we're done chatting, and I'll be here, and you can, support your indie bookstore or Belmont bookstore.
We could probably talk for a few hours.
We could. Yes, we are both talkers. But the sapphire light is something I learned from, I'm blanking on her name, one of my teachers in the dream world. It is invoking a protective bubble of light from the color of sapphire, and it's called saphir, and it's passed down through a Kabbalistic lineage from Colette, who was a female Kabbalist in Spain in the 1400s. And the name of the person I'm going to be from is going to pop out of my mouth at any moment. It's in the book anyway. But what you do, basically, is you channel from the highest source to the crown on the top of your head the color sapphire light. Now we know that in many, many traditions throughout the world, the color of blue is the color of healing, of protection. Mother Mary, the robe is blue. The Hindu gods and goddesses, their faces are often blue. Any Avatar movie fans in the crowd, right? What color were they?
Oh, yeah.
Blue, right? We know that the paving stones that Moses wanted to go up the mountain and meet God. And God said, no, you can't look on my face or you'll die. So you have to turn your face, if you remember in the story, to the cleft of the rock and he'll shield him. But Moses must have just peeked. And all he could see were the paving stones under God's feet, and they were blue. They were sapphire. So this saphir, the sapphire light, is a color of divine protection. And so the exercise is, and this is one of the things you can send to your departed ancestors who may be suffering, is you first surround yourself with the color of sapphire. Now, if sapphire isn't exactly the right color of blue for you, make any adjustments you need to make it just the right color of blue for you. Teal, aqua, aquamarine, midnight blue. And feel it inside and outside your body as a healing bubble of protection. And with that, you can really journey places with that safety of the sapphire.
And you have another story.
Before I tell the last story, let me just check in to see if there are any other comments, thoughts, ideas, or questions.
I just want to say something. I love you so much. I love listening to you, the way you talk, and everything's really everybody. So you've heard of my dreams. And,
Can I out you who you are?
Yes.
Mia does the outside of me. She's my hairdresser. And Julie's for that matter.
And when I used to get my hair cut.
Okay. And we and so between the chair, the hairdresser and the client, it's always this intense talk. So of course I take advantage of telling her my dreams. And I try really hard not to, but that's beside it. So she knows about my dreams, and I'm having some really funny looking dreams, and I say that they're behind my eyelid. Like my eyelid is like a screen, and I've been seeing these deteriorating, funny figures and faces melting and all kinds of stuff. But I have to say, you just talking about sapphire recently, and she's kind of given me some hints on how to welcome them, release them, whatever. For a little process there, I was laughing at them, saying, please, like, you're here again, like, get away, because I was kind of scared of it. But recently, I'm seeing turquoise. Like, I can't even tell you. Turquoise is coming in, and now, and you're just talking about the sapphire, and it comes in all different, and it's happy, it feels good. Yeah. So that's just something that's, I really believe in my dreams. I used to think that they were scary and I'd shoo them away, but they really help myself, and I know that I am in pain because of my ancestral people. I know that. It's a fact, and I think it was number 4 that you had said.
Yeah.
And I really know that.
Oh,
I
well,
know.
we'll
Thank
get,
you,
we'll,
Mia.
when I'm back in the chair, we'll talk. So the last story is, I gotta give the last story to Julie, because she has been, as my dear friend and dreamer, she's been featured in a few of my books, her dreams. And 2 books ago, in PTS Dreams, we worked on a dream. In the book, she has a different name. In the book, she's Dina because I used a pseudonym, and I chose the name Dina for her in the book because Julie, among other things, is a dance, is a choreographer, and she choreographed a dance based on the story of Dina in the Bible.
And Linda was Dina.
And I danced. She asked me to dance the role of Dina, which was, and if you know the story, Dina has, she's just 12 brothers, and she's this Shem, and she gets raped, and blah, 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 and it's a whole Megillah. But anyway, so in Julie's dream, in Dina's dream, and this is going to be the short form.
Yes.
So she's being chased by a giant around and around in the village. And so already there's a fairy tale motif, right? A giant in a village. And so in the dream, she has the wherewithal, she's still dreaming, to some point turn around and face the giant and talk back to the giant and say something like, why are you chasing me? Or who are you? Or why are you there? And the giant picks her up and hugs her and starts to dance with her. Right? And I don't remember if you said anything or not.
No words, we just looked in
that's
each
it.
other's eyes.
Okay, so that dream was in the last book. And so we talked about how empowering it is to be able to turn and face that which is, whatever that is, which is chasing you. And how in this dream, that which was following her and she feared and she was afraid of actually turned out she just wanted to dance with her. And she is a dancer, right, in her life, and a choreographer. So for this part, I don't know if I need to read it or not. So then fast forward, I'm writing Ancestral Dreaming. I revisit the dream in the light of what happened next in Julie's life, thinking about the giant and the ancestors. So then Julie choreographs a dance piece called Under the Canopy that has to do with her ancestors' journey from passage from Europe to America to escape the Holocaust. She's choreographed a dance piece and she's performing it. And in the audience, in addition to her children, was her mother. So that came into the book as well. And then yours was Passages, and then Joni's was that. And then a friend of ours choreographed another piece called Under the Canopy that involved looking at ancestors as well. So we took this dream that she'd had many, many years ago, and we worked on it in one way, the nightmare and healing the nightmare. And then we took it to another layer, right? We peeled the layer back and found the ancestral connection that she actually manifested. So that's my friend the dreamer. Any comments?
One question. What would it mean to be a good ancestor? How can we be good ancestors?
So the last chapter is entitled How to Be a Good Future Ancestor. Because we're all going to be good future ancestors, whether or not we have children, right? Our students, our dance partners, our clients, our whoever's in our life that we're in a position of mentoring in some way, shape, or form. So first we tell their stories. We remember them. We trot out their dishes for the holidays. My mom used to plant gladiolas, I remember when I was 3 years old, and in the first garden I had as an adult, I planted gladiolas in her honor. Our sister Winnie's husband died a year or two ago, and when we went to his memorial, people were talking about how we grew up in Buffalo, New York, and it snows a lot there. And Jim was always one of the people who'd show up at the neighbors with the snowplow or the shovels. So being a good shower-upper, right, is a way to honor our ancestors. And telling our children and anyone else in our life about the qualities that they may have of our ancestors is another way to be a good future ancestors. And for those of you who either have children or are children or are thinking about ever having children and grandchildren, you know that sometimes the last person, and if you remember if you were a child yourself, you all were, The last person you want to hear advice from is your parent, right? And they can hear advice from almost anyone else besides you. But if you teach your children to honor their dreams and honor the connections they can make through their dreams, then you can say to them, go ask Grandma what she thinks about this problem. Go ask Zadie what he thinks about this problem. And they might come back and tell you, oh, Grandma said this and that to me in the dream. And this has happened more than once in our life. And I'm always delighted to say, I agree with what Grandma said, and I'm off the hook from having to do that.
Smart.
Is there anything else before we end? Go sign some books.
Yes. Before you speak, just in case we get up, I would love it if you wanted to be on my mailing list to, if you're not already, you can put your name up here. Okay, you had a comment or question.
Yeah. So let's just say you don't have children.
Mm-hmm.
How can you pass on this healing to your descendants if time is not linear, right? So like, I had an experience before my father passed away last year, where he could be really like grumpy and stubborn and just pissy a lot. But I learned to see it in a different way, and I started kind of lovingly referring to him as Ferdinand the Bull. And I, like, when he was in the hospital, and he like teared up because he said that's what his mom used to call him.
Oh.
My little Ferdinand. And you know the story of Ferdinand the
Yes.
Bull? Like,
Yeah.
So you were
Yeah.
channeling his mother.
Yes, and I look just like her too. So like, I don't have children, biological ones, but you know, like, and I don't know that I will, but do you see what I'm asking? Like, how does it have to be biological?
No, well, absolutely,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be biological. There are many ways to create a family, including my beloved daughter, who does not share a drop of our biological blood. I knew she was gonna. I asked her permission if I could say it. We brought her home from China, and she could no more be our daughter than if she was biologically connected to our bloodstream. She's completely, totally, 100% the most wonderful daughter in the world. And there will be other people in your life who you're not necessarily related to biologically, who you have a connection with, who you have an impact on, who you care about. And that's how.
And we don't know. We just do not know how we touch people
Right.
and how we live on. And
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
So the last thing I'm gonna say on this is, as I get older, and my daughter can vouch for this, I've gotten much friendlier to strangers. Yeah, but here's the eye roll, right? So I'll say hi to someone. Like I was walking down by the river, and someone was pushing their kid in a carriage, and I happened to notice that their shoe was untied. And at first I said, "Oh, hi! Oh, your daughter's so cute, whatever." I said, "Oh, and by the way, your shoe's untied." No, it wasn't in a carriage. The daughter they had a snuggly. Your shoe is untied. And I said, I don't want you to trip. Would it be okay with you if I tied your shoe? So I leaned down and I tied his shoe. And he said, that was the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. And I was so touched. And I have no idea how that might have affected him in his life. And it certainly kept him from tripping and smashing either his own or his daughter's head on the ground. So you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. So on that note, I know people have, it might be getting late. I'm going to be here. I'm hanging around if you want to talk to me.
books are here.
Books are here. Sign the list. Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you,
coming.
everybody.